Good morning and welcome to Man of Machine's latest event where we take a look at Autodesk licensing. My name is Nathan Brownsword. I'm a sales manager here at Man of Machine. I'm joined by our technical director, Robin Beals, who will be taking you through all of the latest changes that have been made by Autodesk when looking at license management. I think before we start, it's important that we just let you know that all content that's been shown today is under a safe harbor. It's correct as of today's date. If there are changes in the future, then I'd always recommend that you look to speak to account managers within our team, but more importantly, look out for probably some of the marketing that comes across from us. So, as I say, myself and Robin are going to take you through a whistle-stop tour of all of the changes that have been made from Autodesk, all of the new licensing options that are available. Please feel free to get in touch in the meantime. If you do have questions, pop them in the chat bar at the top. Feel free to give us a call. Also, you can connect with either of us on LinkedIn, on socials, and drop us an email from there. We're quite keen to make sure we support our customers. I think you could probably see that in the sense that by running this webinar, we're really keen to make sure that you're as educated as possible when it comes to Autodesk licensing, but more importantly, just making sure that you're on the right plan. So before I start, it's always good to just explain a bit about Man of Machine, who we are, what we do, where we can support you. And when you look at Man of Machine, we're split into two different divisions here in the UK. One of them focuses on what we call the AEC market, the architects, construction, engineering, anything that goes into a building. But we also have a team set up that specializes with supporting manufacturing organizations. What this means is we by influence, we have a lot of expertise in terms of supporting your supply chain earlier. So whether that's building product manufacturers, providing COBie information, BIM models, Revit files, whatever it may be, we're able to support them. And what can often lead to is we start to supply and support your wider workflow, your supply chain. And by doing so, it really means that we start to actually see a real change in the industry in terms of if you start to ask for certain information that they can provide, and ultimately it supports that, I suppose, that BIM life cycle, so to speak. In terms of the organization here, or with Man of Machine, we are German owned. We are very prevalent across Europe, but in terms of our reach, we are a global organization and nearly 1,000 staff now, nearly 250 million euro pound company, 250 million euro company, sorry. We have quite a large pool of staff and technical team to be able to support you and your business. So where does that take us to? So like I say, I'm calling you or speaking to you from the UK, but in terms of our team, we pretty much cover most of the countries or major countries across mainland Europe. France, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, Switzerland, Poland, Italy, there's quite a few there. That really means that we have localized support. I've actually had quite a few customers ask us recently in terms of projects that they're supporting overseas or working on overseas, to actually being put in touch with colleagues in those local offices for, I suppose, more so from a communication point of view. There is no language barrier there. They know how we can support them in terms of solutions that we offer. They're very much in line with what we do here in the UK, but they just look for that local help, and we're able to provide that. In terms of the actual programs or technology that we provide, so again, we're on this call today to talk to you about Autodesk. We are one of the largest partners across Europe. What that means is we're able to understand and support across the core applications, both from a construction cloud point of view, but also when you start to look at the native authoring tools, your Autocad, your Revit, all of that, all of those programs that you probably have in your AEC collection, some of which you've never opened or won't even download, but we're able to support the main ones that you see on screen. It's the same said on the manufacturing side, so being able to support the core products from Autodesk, and really that means that we have an understanding of not only what you're using, but we start to building different plugins and applications that can support things such as visualization tools, conceptual designs, automated designing. There's a whole host of different technology that we're starting to implement within our customers. Well, in terms of the technology side, that's great. Well, what's going on in the industry at the moment? You don't have to go too far to see the role that construction plays, or kind of like the news that's going on at the moment. If you start to actually think about things like sustainability, digital ways of working, you look at some of the projects that have gone way over budget. I mean, I read in the paper a couple of weeks ago about Crossrail, about the delivery times on that and how much over budget it was. There's a real pressure from clients, local authorities, government to actually develop the way that we're working. And I'm not going to sit here and say that everyone wants to champion all aspects on here, but actually by adopting some of the technology that you've seen on the previous slide, you can start to actually tackle these issues head on. And that can be from a point of view of, well, BIM's becoming very, very prevalent at the moment with the introduction of ISO 19650 standard, and also in terms of that certification and building smart getting on board. It's starting to be a real drive there. There's already pressure from government. That's fine for public sector projects. But when you start to actually talk to the major players within the market, your tier one contractors, they're starting to mandate it on all of their projects. So we're starting to see a real drive now. And how can we support you? Well, it depends what really area you want to, what direction you're going in. I've missed a slide there, I won't go back. But what it starts to talk about is the services that we can provide, be it training on those technologies, whether it's consultancy, whether it's looking at where you are now, where you want to get to, setting those objectives. We can help support you. And the way that Man and Machine work is we like to be seen as a partner to your organization. And that could be just a partner for today, for instance, in terms of giving you guidance on your Autodesk licensing. Hopefully you enjoy the webinar and feel that we're very knowledgeable in terms of the information that we provide. But it could actually be much larger scale. It could be helping support you on a major project that you've never worked to that scale on, and being able to support you in terms of training to deliver that, or to actually be able to deliver it in that process in that way that the client's asking for, or for the other contractors. There's a whole host of different ways. And I think the beauty of what we can offer is you can lean on us as much or as little as you want to, and we have the team here to be able to do that. So I know I missed the slides and I've just moved on to today's agenda. We're going to split this in two. So in the first part, I will be talking you through general information around like Autodesk licensing, what's going on from like the standard subscriptions, also with the maintenance to subscription switches we've had. We've also got the recently launched Flex model that's available, and I'm going to touch on Premium Plan as well. I'll then hand over to Robin, where we look in a bit more technical detail at global use rights, administration guides, compliance, auditing services. A lot of those are really popular at the moment from our customers, be it in the sense that you haven't really looked at it for a while. Given the last couple of years, having people in the office, being able to actually license software, maintain all of your IT infrastructure can be quite difficult. So being able to give you some tips and tricks around that, I think is really important. So I will hand over to Robin in good time. However, before we really go into my main conversation I want to talk to you about, I think it's important to look back on in terms of where Autodesk licensing has come from. So when you look at the changes that Autodesk have implemented, the first major one really happened around 2017. Autodesk announced the transition to subscription. Okay, they were doing away with perpetual licensing and that the higher rate of buy a license and then you pay an annual maintenance fee. And they introduced this switch, this changeover, maintenance to subscription. We always, well, we knew that there was financial incentives to move across, whether it's implications or incentives, it depends on which way you look at it. Ultimately, though, the people that adopted it sooner or earlier were the ones that actually felt more financially incentivized to do so. We then had a further change. So once that started to be introduced and customers started to make the move, in 2019, Autodesk announced a transition to name user. So they were looking to remove the ability to have multi-user licenses, and we would move everyone onto single user or a license that is for that individual. That didn't quite go to plan, and what we've kind of seen that with COVID hitting shortly after that was announced, there's been some extensions on that. I'll come over to the key dates moving forward very shortly, but what you then had is, I think the next major point was in May 2021, where you had the last day, or it was your last chance to make maintenance to subscription switches, and also it was your last chance to renew maintenance plans. We don't have any customers that have maintenance plans. We were very meticulous in moving people over. I know that can't be said for everyone. If you do have maintenance plans, please make sure you speak to the team, because there might still be some options available depending upon what you have. However, a rule of thumb is that maintenance plans cannot be renewed moving forward, and they'll be stuck on that version where they dropped off, or the year they dropped off. In January 2022, multi-year discount was reduced from 10% to 5%. So when you're looking at 3-year subscriptions inside of Autodesk, there was a change there. And that, again, has been changed in the sense that you always used to get a 10% discount. That's changed to 5% as of January this year. And the final date in terms of what's been and gone is cloud credits have been discontinued. So they've been replaced with flex tokens. That happened in March this year, and I'm going to explain a bit more about Flex later on in today's session. There is another date. I beg your pardon. So May 2022, maintenance trade-in for multi-user licenses passed. So whilst you couldn't move or you couldn't renew maintenance plans as of May last year, May this year it was your last chance to move them on the 2-for-1 trade-in. So again, that's been and gone. Usually, like I say, forget that point, because we didn't typically have anyone on maintenance plans. So that is the point that always escapes me. However, moving forward, so what are the key dates for your diaries that are coming up? There's only a few now. So the first one is in January of next year. Multi-user discount ends. Okay, so 3-year subscriptions, we've gone from 10% to 5% discount, and as of January 2023, that changes again. The key thing to bear in mind is if you're within your 90-day renewal period prior to the 7th of January, although your renewal might not be till February, March, might even be in April, early April, you can still renew before that date on a multi-year agreement and get that discount, as long as you're inside your 90-day renewal period. If you need some more clarity, please speak to your account manager. We are very proactive in speaking to people that these dates affect. However, if that's of interest to you, then probably it's a good time to talk, because you want to make sure that's planned well in advance of that Christmas period. The next date for your diaries, 7th of February 2023. That's the last date to renew multi-user licenses. It was originally August 2022. You did see on the previous slide that the plan to move to name user started in 2019. 7th of February is the last date to renew multi-user licenses. Again, please bear in mind your 90-day renewal periods. If you have licenses or expiry dates after this date, please speak to your account manager and we can give some guidance around that also. And the final date, 7th February 2024. This is the last chance to move multi-user licenses on the 2-for-1 trade-in, so doubling up. So you'll go from 1 multi-user license to 2 single-user licenses. Again, this date was August 2023, but it's been changed to 7th February 2024. Given the events of the last couple of years, it has been Autodesk have delayed it. In our opinion, these are the last dates where you'll be able to do or make use of trade-ins, renewal periods, discount structures. So it's always good to have a plan. And as I said to you, I've said it a few times now, speak to the team or reach out to myself and Robin, and we can give a bit more guidance around those for you. In terms of the maintenance to subscription licenses, so again, to look back at where this all started. So when you had these perpetual licenses on maintenance, you were given or provided this opportunity to have this, what's known as M2x Guarantee. It's an option from Autodesk until 2028, and it started in 2017. So your first switches from perpetual licensing over to subscription started in 2017. Every year that you delayed it, there was an incremental price increase of 5%. So you start to get these variations such as year 2, and I should say year 3 switch. and that will be a 5% increase on there. Once it got to May 2020, we switched to ongoing, and it's a really simple process from there on in. 2021, maximum 5% increase. We saw a 5% increase on those licenses. 2023, again, May 2023, another 5% increase. 25, 27, until we get to the program being forecast to end in May 2028. We're a long way away from that. Our guidance will probably change, hence why we put a safe harbor at the start to say this is all correct as of this date. We don't really know what's going to happen in terms of beyond those dates, but I think we can talk to you closer to the time. The key things for you to know, however, are 23, 25, 27. So every odd year, M2x licenses will increase standard retail price by a maximum of 5%. If you need any support in terms of looking at this, speak to the team, but we are able to forecast on M2S licenses up until that expiry date or when the program ends on May 2028. So that's the end of looking at licenses.
Pay-as-you-go option to match your team's needs. Just buy tokens and your occasional users will get access to our top products included with Flex. Here's how you can get started. Step 1. Buy tokens for your occasional users online or from your partner. Tokens are available for purchase in pre-specified amounts. Every product has a unique daily rate, so check the rate sheet so you can choose the amount that fits your needs. Tokens last 1 year from purchase and do not roll over, so you can just buy more whenever you need them. Step 2. Assign your users. With Flex, there's no need for individual product assignments. You can assign an unlimited number of users to all products included with Flex, or pick and choose which products they get. Step 3. Make it easy for your assigned users to access products whenever they need. All they need to do is open the product they need, and the corresponding daily rate will be deducted from your token balance. You will be charged a daily rate until your user closes the product. Step 4. Analyze your token usage. We provide tools such as token usage reporting to give you better visibility. See how often each product is getting used so you can monitor your spending. We'll notify you if your tokens are running low so you can buy more and maintain access. Visit autodesk.com/flex for more information.
Brilliant. So just to expand upon those points that you've seen on the short video, the Autodesk video there. So Autodesk Flex was introduced earlier this year, and it was introduced late last year. Sorry, the announcement came at I think it was Autodesk University. However, it was made available to Autodesk partners as of February this year. So what does that mean? Well, Flex has been produced for that kind of occasional user. It should only be considered for part-time users or individuals that are working on projects for a shorter period of time. Flex users can benefit from, well, not only all the different tools you have available, but we talked about what was shown on that video was analytics, actually starting to look at the assigning of individuals, what products they're using, and you can start to actually have much granular information in terms of what's available. The final point on Flex, and it's a very important one, tokens that you use on the software. So once you open a program, i.e., let's say, for instance, I have Autocad downloaded on my machine and I sign into Autocad. I have 24 hours of use from that point in time. So it's not over a set day, it's 24 hours from when you sign in. And all the different products will require a different amount of tokens based upon, I suppose, the pricing that's set out from Autodesk. Another key thing to mention on this, and it's something I've been working with a customer on recently, whilst you might access or signing on the software and you have that 24-hour window, once that individual is actually finished on that project or they finished doing that work, they just need to sign out. Once they sign out, they're out of the program, out of the software, and it just means that there's no issues in terms of tokens being consumed, or it starts to actually change the analytics that you have available. So how does it work? You saw on screen 4 different steps that are explained on that video. So you buy your tokens, you assign your users. You can also assign, for instance, I could say to Robin, for instance, I'll assign him onto my Flex portal. And what can happen from there is I can actually restrict what products he can use. So not having all of the different Autodesk tools, because we know how people are, especially in terms of on the more day-to-day, they become inquisitive, they look for better ways to work, and they start to actually look at tools when they probably don't know them, but then ultimately with Flex, there is a cost to that. So setting up the users and ensuring that they have access to the correct tools is really important. Step 3, again, you access the products. Tokens are used every 24 hours. So once they log in, that's fine. They get access to the software, and then we can track the token use and spending moving from there. What Man and Machine like to do at step 4, and I'll come on to it in much more detail very shortly, is to actually work alongside you to make sure that you track this usage properly, and ultimately we review it in the early part. Flex is new for partners. It's also going to be new for you if you look to subscribe to it and haven't used something similar before. So making sure we stay on top of it's really, really important. So is Flex right for you? Okay, I said earlier on, or a couple of slides ago, Flex is best for occasional users. So people that will be using it sporadically, could be engineers, could be typically non-CAD users that just need to use it once a week or once in a blue moon. If they're using the tool for a large part of their role, they need to stay on a subscription. So in terms of a paid for subscription, a year's term, 3 years term, whatever it may be, that is better for frequent users. In terms of the, I suppose, Autodesk Flex, in terms of like the products you have available, so these are the rates in terms of kind of like the key softwares from a manufacturing point of view. As you can see on there already, the different tools cost different amounts. So it's really, really important that you start to make sure that you assign the users and actually apply what they can use. When we look at the construction market or architecture or the design side, so if you look at your core products like Revit, Autocad, the kind of design functions, even going into visualization tools like 3ds Max, for instance, you can see that the rates of these products differ. I can provide full rate sheets for you so you can start to see it based upon what products you're using. Feel free to drop a message in the chat or to pick up us after. In terms of the token pricing, again, it works in almost like a pack ability. So whether you subscribe to 500 tokens, 1,000, 5,000, 50,000, you will start to see that the rate for those tokens decreases based upon the kind of like ultimately the more you subscribe to. As I said to you earlier, and as you'll see at the top of the slide, tokens will expire after 12 months. So my advice is to subscribe to enough tokens for probably a quarter or at maximum a half year point, and then we start to review it from there. So please bear that in mind if you're starting to look at this moving forward. In terms of the benefits of Flex, so when we look at analytics, there's 2 points to this. Users can see it in their hub. So if you go into Autodesk portal, you're able to see who's consuming licenses, what days they did, what software they're using, and you can start to get some good metrics over a week, a month, 6 months, a year, whatever it may be. But also Man and Machine do as well. So within our portal, we can start to see the analytics of our customers, what you're using, and we can start to be proactive in terms of supporting you. I was on a call yesterday doing exactly that in terms of the implementation of Flex and actually giving them some, I suppose, important information around who's actually subscribing to those tools and who's using those. And we can start to actually use our expertise to help guide you. So it's a two-way street, and that is how we like to work with Flex. And I can assure you, if you're going to use that or are a little bit worried, then speak to your account manager, talk to them, and set in or put in the diary points in time where you'll talk to them, be it after a month or a few weeks, or be it 6 months, whenever it should be, however often or infrequent you feel comfortable with. So that's the end of Flex. The final part from me, you'll probably be pleased to hear, is Premium Plan. So I'm just going to start the short video and we'll take a look at Premium Plan.
Organizations such as ourselves are managed locally in different regions, and often the regions want input into what licensing that they have.
Having multiple servers to manage, no global rights, and very limited user management. It's been a headache of ours in RPS for a long, long time.
Before, we would first get an idea of increased usage by people reporting that they've been denied licenses.
Licensing in the Autodesk cloud is amazing compared to what we had before. So we have gone from having the 13 servers-ish around RPS to having a single cloud license server. We really couldn't have done this project without the single sign-on. If I've got to create 1,300 accounts, it could have been a bit of a disaster for us.
Having that single sign-on is also a massive benefit that Premium Tier gives to us, in that we don't have to set up new user access. Users don't need to remember new passwords.
User management is far simpler. Now we can actually see exactly who's using what, where, how long they're using it for, and exactly how much it's costing the business.
It gives us granularity that we never had before.
I think it exceeded our expectations. Our goals were to have global rights, to have single sign-on and access to more products, and we got all three of those quite easily.
The Premium Tier also gives us that benefit of having a central contract administration, in that we can manage our global contract with one provider, with one account manager and one reseller, and it makes a massive difference to be able to do that. Our company philosophy is to make complex easy, and it's written into everything that we do. So this Premium Tier has given us that promise.
Right, let me just get out of this one. Sorry about this. So moving on. So in terms of, it's great to see in terms of a customer that's using Premium Plan, we've got quite a few businesses that we're supporting in terms of working with teams around the world. They've got challenges in terms of single sign-on and all that type of thing. So where does Premium Plan fit in? If you look at typically the customer profile of like what challenges are you facing, okay, where does Premium Plan seem to come into this? Typically, it starts to be around the area of, okay, assigning access to every new user, person that comes into the business, being able to actually support them or do that in a much more simpler way, and Premium Plan offers that. Critical support cases, downtime, in terms of actually having that extra expertise from Autodesk. Again, Man & Machine are based in UK and also across Europe. If you have people in different time zones, it can be a benefit sometimes to have localized support or people within Autodesk that are much more closer. By all means, if it's business critical, then look, we want to make sure that's resolved, whether it's Man & Machine or whether that's Autodesk. At the end of the day, your main focus, or that individual's main focus, is to get up and running as soon as possible, and Premium Plan can support that. In terms of users needing access, well, again, this is an area that Premium Plan comes into its own in terms of usage reports, and we're going to touch on that in a bit more detail very shortly. But again, you've heard on the video in terms of single sign-on and security, Premium Plan does offer this in abundance. So the three core areas that we tend to look at when we see our customers moving over to Premium Plan, again, we just mentioned one right there in terms of single sign-on, ensuring that security is at an optimum, and single sign is only available in Premium Plan. So if that is something that you want to look at, then by all means, Premium Plan is probably the route to go down to actually achieve this. Other areas, user analytics, information in terms of actually, again, like you saw similar to inside of Flex, software, the saturate, well, almost where you're getting to in terms of the amount of users, how often they're using the software, or how many licenses you have subscribed. You start to actually be able to measure that in a much more detailed way. The other area is global travel rights. I will come on to this in a bit more detail, or actually let Robin take over probably and explain about this, because there has been a few changes here in terms of global travel rights, but we'll cover that very shortly. So, in Premium Plan from Man & Machine's point of view, so, well, what are the T's and C's around it? The main one is it used to be only available for license estates 50 or above. That has changed. It's now available for organizations that have 10 licenses across their estate. To use Premium Plan, okay, you must have Premium Plan subscriptions for all of your software licenses. You can't, unfortunately, pick and choose which users you want to have Premium Plan available for. You either have it for all of them, or unfortunately, you don't have it for any of them. All products qualify except cloud applications, Autodesk Construction Cloud, i.e. Autodesk Docs, BIM Collaborate Pro, Build, Takeoff, those tools. All other products that have been in the market for some time now will qualify and are eligible to have Premium Plan licenses against those. Premium Plan subscriptions are chargeable at £235 per license or per user, however way you look at that. We can give you some more information around financials from there, but it's very, very simple, so I'm happy to share that with you. Any license additions made, so this is again a very important point, but any license additions made once a premium contract is initiated will automatically be covered under the original agreement. What this means is if you, at point of renewal, you buy Premium Plan, cover your licenses, in 2 months' time, for instance, you ring Man & Machine and say, I need another license, you will not need to pay for that additional Premium Plan license. It is a point in time, and what you'll do is at the renewal point from there, it's again, you will then look at the Premium Plan, how many licenses are on the estate, and you will do what we've just mentioned in point 2, where we'll need to cover all of the licenses from there. Like I say, feel free to get in touch with any questions. I appreciate you've probably heard enough of me this morning and be delighted to hear that Robin will be taking over. So I will hand over to Robin just to explain a little bit more on some of the points I've mentioned around Premium Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Good morning, everyone. Good to have you all here. I'm just going to stop my share and then re-share my screen, if that's okay, just because Nathan had control and I want to take that back. There we go. And I'm just going to get a couple of screens ready over here on the right-hand side. So what I wanted to do as part of this session is maybe elaborate technically on a couple more points that that tie in directly to the licensing and subscriptions. So I want to do this in 2 ways. So firstly, I've got a few slides to talk through, and then I'm going to jump into the manage.autodesk.com account area and just talk through a couple of bits very briefly that tie very much into the points that I'm making. So let's just get PowerPoint moving on. So firstly, global usage rights. And for me, this is a big win for a lot of users out there, because some changes were made by Autodesk early on in May, which changed the positioning and the availability for global usage rights on your subscriptions. So this used to be something that was purely only available for premium subscribers. And now it's available for users of standard subscriptions as well. So you no longer require Premium Plan for global use, whether that's a subsidiary, a contractor, or whatever it might be. And this is great because we went through a period of 3 years or so, 4 years, where we couldn't use those that global usage if we were standard subscription. So so that's really, really good news. If you're on a standard subscription and you have a contractor or a subsidiary working in one of the approved countries, and I'll bring up the list in a second, then you are able to use your standard subscription with that user globally, which is great. Any countries that are not on the approved list, there are a couple of limitations. So you can only use them within the country of purchase or when temporarily traveling for up to 90 days annually, which is kind of what it used to be many moons ago. So yeah, a big improvement for standard subscriptions. Obviously, as Nathan said right at the start, just the statement in the bottom there, just a safe harbor really more than anything else, in that this stuff changes quite regularly, and anyone that's used to the Autodesk world of licensing and subscriptions will be well aware of that. So all I will say is make sure that you are keeping up to speed with the Autodesk End User License Agreement, the EULA, and the terms of use, which you can just find from autodesk.com/company/terms of use. And then you've got all of the areas there from the general terms, the special terms, subscription benefits, so on and so forth. And this is the area that you want to keep track of, because that's essentially what all of the compliance audits and things like that will go against, those general terms and conditions, which can change from time to time. So keep your eye on there, and please make sure that you don't take what we're saying today as gospel forever. It's correct as of today. It's correct from the 13th of May onwards, and we suspect it will be correct for a number of months, if not years, moving forward. But please do check the EULA, especially if you're watching this on a rerun on YouTube in 6, 8, 18 months time, whatever it might be. What I'm also going to do is bring up the that list of approved countries, just to show you where it is on the site. Just bear with me a second. So again, if you just bring up their legal notices, you have, oops, wrong page, apologies. You have global travel rights just here. There we go, under the terms of use. And if we have a look through here, there's a new notification from the May the 13th. If you open that up, you can see the changes to the subscription benefits. And if you look through here, you will be able to find the list of approved countries somewhere under here. I'll find it and stick it up later rather than search for it now. Nathan, maybe you can find that in the background, stick it in the chat for me, rather than me lingering on the point. But really good news, you can use these unrestricted. If you've got people working in Germany or Italy or Spain, for example, then we can work with that quite nicely. The next one I wanted to cover was a little bit about compliance. Now, this is difficult for us to talk about from an Autodesk partner perspective, because there are things that we can and can't do, and things that we can and can't talk about when it comes to compliance. But I think what's important, and what I really wanted to do as part of this session today, when Nathan said he was having a webinar on subscriptions and licensing, is just go through some general rules and some things that are very clear within the EULA, because there are some mixed messages out there, and there are people that we see on a regular basis that are doing things that they perhaps shouldn't be. And I think it's just right to put out there some of the general rules, some things to be aware of, and maybe a couple of recommendations as well. Again, safe harbor statement at the bottom, correct as of today, as necessary. So when it comes to license compliance, actually the rules are really, really straightforward. And if anyone's got any individual concerns or questions, then please reach out after the session directly. But with all of the changes that have happened over the past 4 or 5 years in transitioning to subscription, one of the key changes that we have is single user licenses. Now, you'll notice if you read any Autodesk terminology, they're actually called named user licenses. So when you subscribe to a single user, that is a named user license, which means they must be assigned to a named individual or a named account. So what you cannot do is subscribe to one AutoCAD, for example, and then assign that AutoCAD to a designers@manamachine.co.uk email address, which several people can tap into. That's a huge no-no. That's very, very visible to the compliance teams, and that will be a non-compliant usage. It's a named account, so you have to give that assignment to a named individual. Doesn't mean that you can't reassign that license and repurpose that license, and there are no limits on how often you can do that. So, for example, if Nathan and myself both needed to access Autodesk Inventor, for example, but we're not regular users, so we jump in and out, it's absolutely fine to subscribe to a license or a subscription of Autodesk Inventor, and maybe we first assign that to Nathan. And it might be then that midway through the week, Nathan's not using it, and I need to use that license. The administrator can log in, unassign Nathan from that license, and reassign it to me on my named user linked to my email address. I can then use it for a period of time. That can be unassigned and reassigned to Nathan. And there are no limits to how often that reassignment can be done, but it has to be a named user account. You cannot share logins and you cannot share devices. With regards to those named accounts, each user can sign up or sign in on up to 3 devices at any one time. So if we use that same scenario that I've just given and we have that Inventor subscription and that's assigned to Nathan, Nathan can sign into his laptop. Maybe he's got a desktop under his desk as well, which he might use for running Enscape. Maybe it's got a bit more ground. If it's a Revit license, for example, he can sign in on that desktop machine. And maybe he wants to sign in on a mobile device to be able to access some files through a cloud drive or something like that. That's his 3 devices. You can be signed in on 3 devices, but you may only use 1 device at a time. An example of this, if we switch into the AEC market, which I know a number of you on the call are, if you're working upstairs in the office using Revit and you're signed into your laptop using Revit, and you've got a model open, and maybe a client comes in to have a virtual reality session in their model downstairs in the boardroom. You leave your Revit signed on upstairs, you head downstairs into the boardroom, you open Revit with the same account, and you go and use Enscape or Twinmotion or whatever it might be with Revit open on that machine as well. You're using 2 Revits at the same time, although you're not actively using them, they're open. So that is concurrent usage, and that will be tracked as concurrent usage from a compliance perspective. So you must only use 1 license and have product open on 1 machine at any one time. And that includes multiple products. So if you have an AEC collection or a PDMC, you can't open Navisworks on 1 machine and Revit on another. You can open both on the same machine, but you can't use the 2 licenses across multiple machines at the same time. Devices do not automatically sign out, so you have to do that manually and use some self-discipline to sign in and sign out as necessary, especially if you're using a shared computer. So going back to that VR room scenario, if that's a shared device, make sure you sign out, because when you're under pressure, when you're working to timescales, the last thing you're going to remember to do is, oh, am I signed in as the right user? If Revit's opened, you're just going to jump in and use it. But try to use that self-discipline, because it will not automatically sign you out or prompt you. Shared devices should be used very carefully and with good discipline, basically, is what I'm trying to say there. On top of that, retired machines must be signed out or should be signed out. So it's very common in the industry, as designers or engineers, typically we have fairly powerful machines, but they might be signed off over a period of 3 years, which after 3 years, technology's come so far that as a designer or an engineer, you'd need a new laptop or a new workstation potentially. But that machine as a resource is actually still very powerful and very fast for another user in the business. Make sure you sign out of that software before that machine's repurposed. And if necessary, if the software is not going to be used, get rid of it, uninstall it. I've noticed some questions coming in, so I'll get to those at the end. I will keep going with my flow for now. Previous usage. So this changed not relatively recently, but a little while back, a couple of years or so. When you get an Autodesk subscription, you have access to the current version and up to 5 versions back. You get good support for up to 3, but you can access up to 5 versions back. So as we sit here and now with an AutoCAD 2023, you can use with that subscription back to AutoCAD 2018 without any issues whatsoever. Be careful with versions outside of that. It could be non-compliant. There are cases where you are allowed to use versions older than that. You can get special allowances from Autodesk with an approval to do that. If you're a legacy M2x client or account, then you've got some options there as well. But don't think that because you subscribe to 2023, you can automatically go and download and install 2016 and you'll have no issues. If in doubt, please reach out. But as a rule of thumb, it's the latest and 5 versions back. Okay. Big point here is previous versions are not additional subscription count. So they have exactly the same rules as all of the other later versions of software. So I can't open AutoCAD 2018 on this machine and then AutoCAD 2023 or Revit 2023 on this machine. It counts as part of your subscription. So if you have one subscription assigned to you, you can access it on one machine at any one time, not multiple. Just taking those points and maybe making a couple of recommendations. And again, we have to be a bit careful with what we suggest here for obvious reasons. But again, there's some real clarity to what you can and can't do. And there's also some real clarity to where people usually fall over. So a couple of recommendations. Too many sign-ins or concurrent usage, which is something that gets a lot of people. You can sign in on 3 devices, full stop, the end of story, but you can only use one at a time. That is very clear in the EULA. Make sure you abide to that rule. A lot of you are currently using virtual environments, and actually that's quite a loose term, virtual environment. That might be that you are using AWS, Microsoft Azure. It could be that you're logging into your desktop in the office using TeamViewer or RDP. There's a lot of loose use of that word, virtual environment. However, it's very, very clear in the EULA that the virtual environments must use single user licenses. They cannot use multi-user licenses. Okay, so if you're running any virtualization at all, Citrix, whatever it might be, it has to be a single user license. Be careful on those devices because it's a shared device. So make sure that you control that discipline. Make sure you log in and log out when you're finished on that session. Even if you have separate Windows logins, which you'll likely have, especially on an Azure or AWS device, that device will be counted as part of your 3. And if it's virtual, you might not log into that device again for another 2, 3, 4 weeks because there's other ones in the pool that you could access in the meantime. So rule of thumb, log out when you're finished, so it always prompts a login. Administrators, you can write scripts for pretty much all of the virtualization software to clear the relevant files on a sign off or shutdown, which will basically log out for you. So please get in touch if you need some more information. If you drop any subscriptions or do any upgrades of legacy stuff, for example, sign out of and uninstall any old software. So if you drop a subscription and that subscription's gone, you're never going to use it again, sign out of the software and uninstall it for good measure. You shouldn't need to uninstall it because everything's controlled on the sign in, sign out, but just for good measure, give it an uninstall, especially if they're non-compliant previous versions. If you've upgraded from a very old legacy piece of software, for example, you might still have that and it might still happily work on your machine, but it could be picked up in an audit and it would be non-compliant if it was picked up on an audit. So again, if in doubt, please ask. Be very careful with anything that's come from a maintenance plan, legacy software, because the likelihood is it will run quite happily, but it might not necessarily be compliant. So just be very careful with those. One that we see an awful lot actually is educational versions of the software. So students can get free software across the board for Autodesk, and a lot of them have it, and they have it on their Macs, and they have it on their laptops, and they use it on their personal devices, which is great because it means that the software is out there. But if you are hiring students, apprentices, temporary staff that are students, just be wary about that, because if they've got an educational Revit on their laptop and they think, oh, do you know what, I'm just going to take that home and finish it off, I'll put in a few extra hours, which is, it's a great thing, right? But if they do that on their educational software, it will put a permanent watermark on your work. You won't be able to remove that unless you get special approval from Autodesk to do so. And it will actually flag that your company are using educational software for commercial use, which again is a big no-no from a compliance perspective. So just be aware of that. Obviously there's common sense there from both sides of the fence, but just be wary if you've got students or apprentices or people that may have an educational piece of software. Just be wary and maybe push that they're using the business laptop with the proper subscription to do the additional hours or the work if they're doing that, because that comes up an awful lot. And actually with that same point, just be aware that there are still a number of cracked versions of the software out there, a number of non-legal versions of the software, which again, if people are using their own machines to do the work, there are better ways to do that using their 3 logins. For example, they're logged in on their work laptop, they're logged in on their home laptop or their personal machine, and they're logged in on a mobile. That allows them to work, obviously one at a time, but in the office, at home, and when they're on the road as well. So just be aware of those points. Before I jump in and do a bit of a demonstration on how you want to make sure that people are assigned the right licenses, so on and so forth, if you've got any concerns or queries or questions or worries about any of those points, or just want to get a better understanding about where your licenses are or your subscriptions are, then one option that you do have is a subscription software auditing service, which we offer here at Man & Machine. And Nathan and his team will be very happy to discuss this with you in more detail. Whether it is that you're deciding on maybe subscribing to a premium plan, which gives you access to quite a few cloud-based auditing tools, which are actually really nice, and you want to see that in more detail, or maybe get a demonstration or understand that, or you want to look at a specific service with some very specific software to track and monitor usage, we can offer that service for you. It might be that you're transitioning from a multi-user to a single user environment over the next couple of years, especially with a lot of 2-for-1s that are still going for the next 2 years or so. 2 years, 1 year, 2023. Keep forgetting it's 2022. Or it might be that you just want a better understanding of your subscription usage. I see Nathan laughing. The problem with Autodesk software is it lives in the future. Every day I open 2023 Inventor or Autocad or Revit, I just get lost. It might just be that you want a better understanding of subscription usage. What do I need to renew? What do I need to subscribe to? As I say, we've got a number of different pieces of software. I've obviously blurred out names here for obvious reasons, because this is live data for the most part, certainly on the left and in the middle. But we've got a number of different solutions for license auditing or software usage, whether it's looking at single user licenses, whether it's looking at an old multi-user network server. We have different options available for you. And we've got services that span from a couple of days to get something quite short and sharp, or something that we can monitor over a period of time to make sure that we're getting an accurate representation of your usage. And that's a service that we're more than happy to come and talk to you about. Before I open up for questions, I'm just going to grab a login to manage.com. Bring that over onto the screen. Because whilst this is going to be teaching some of you to suck eggs a little bit, I think it's important to just cover off a couple of the do's and don'ts, mainly because of the points that I've discussed about, I guess, today, and that we have things that we should and shouldn't do, things that we can and can't do. And I think that this interface is so straightforward to use nowadays. And actually we can have multiple administrators as well. So I just wanted to open it up and just go through a couple of points very quickly. But again, if you have any specific questions or concerns or things that you're trying to do but can't, just reach out and we'd be more than happy to have a conversation, whether that's myself or Nathan, one of my team in technical, or one of Nathan's team, or indeed Simon's team on the manufacturing side. So whenever you purchase a subscription, that subscription will be assigned to an administrator. In the back-end system is actually known as a contract manager, but from a licensing perspective, it's known as a primary administrator. And on an account, you can have one primary administrator, but you can have as many secondary administrators as you need to. They can actually do very much the same thing, but a primary administrator can also manage billing, and you get information about your subscriptions and contracts, whereas a secondary administrator can just manage the users and the subscriptions that they have access to. Now, I'm just going to flick this off the screen for a second, because I do have a number of things in there that I need to be careful about showing. So let me make sure it's going to show the right area first of all. Just give me a second. Yes, it is. That's great. So what I can do on the left-hand side is I've got an area called user management. Generally speaking, if you're subscribing to something new here and now, you will only see by user, by product, or by group. If, like me, you've had Autodesk licenses forever, you'll also have classic user management in there as well. First things first, go to by user and make sure that you invite users into your account. Okay, anyone that you want to access the software, they need an Autodesk account, so you can assign them a license. Anyone that you want to be an administrator, they need an Autodesk account, so that you can assign them an administrator. When you have those users set up, for example, if I come over to Cameron here, we can go in and we can have a look at Cameron's details individually as a user. We can see anything that I have assigned him. We can also assign him things that we don't have assigned to him. And we need also change his role. So if I wanted Cameron to become an administrator on my account, I could assign him an administrator as well. Okay. So first things first, subscribe, set up your administrators, then invite in all of your users. Obviously, this is if you're not a premium plan user. And then once those users are in there, we go to the user, we can see A, products that that user has assigned, and B, products that we can assign to that user. So if I want to assign Cameron a license of Autodesk Build, I can come to Build and I can say assign. Within 2 or 3 seconds, that license will be assigned. And if Cameron tries to log into Build within a couple of minutes, it will work, no problems at all. It's pretty instantaneous nowadays. Likewise, to unassign that license, I come up to the license and unassign it. Again, within a couple of seconds, that license will be back in your pool and available to allocate to someone else. So thinking back to that discussion from earlier where Nathan has a license and I need to use it, we can simply go to Nathan, unassign it, go to me, reassign it. Really quick, really easily, and no limits on that. Just make sure their own individual named user. As well as doing things by user, we also have the ability to do things by product. So if I come into by product over here on the left-hand side, we can see all of my different products. I could go into Upchain Professional, for example, and I can have a look at who Upchain is assigned to. If I've got licenses available, I'm just going to unassign myself just to make this nice and clear. I've got 1 seat available and 1 seat total. I go to Assign Users. I type in a name. Apparently, my name eludes me. Interesting. A bit more specific. You can't assign more users. Good. The joys of a live demo. I knew there was a reason why I didn't want to do a live demo. Let's try one more time. I'm just going to use down here rather than the search. We'll ignore the fact that the search didn't work. Assign my license, click the plus, hit assign, give it a couple of seconds and it's job done. So it's really straightforward whether you're going by user or by product. The other thing that we can do is create groups. Again, I'm just going to move this onto another machine just to make sure we don't have any client-facing groups in here that I don't want to share, which we don't, which is great. So we can now manage users and assignments by group. This is especially useful for Flex. And I can create as many groups as I need to and put users within those groups. And then we can assign products to those groups. We can assign Flex licenses to those groups, so on and so forth. Okay. The Flex tokens are assigned in exactly the same way as you've just seen me assign licenses. You have them listed as a product and we assign users to them so that they can use those tokens and unassign users from them so they can't use the tokens. Pretty straightforward, no issues at all. Finally, as well as the user management, if you come and have a look at your products on the left-hand side, look at products and services, we get a list of products. Clearly, I haven't logged on here for a little while, go away. Give it a couple of seconds and we can see all of our products. If I go into a collection, for example, let's scroll down and have a look for an AEC collection. Maybe they've got rid of that. I haven't logged in here for a week or two. Okay, so new interface, it only shows individual products, which is great, makes things a little bit easier. If you're on the old classic view, you would see the collection. You could go into it to see the individual products, but we can see all of our different products on here. So if I want to install 3ds Max, for example, I can go on to 3ds Max, and this would give me the ability to see available old versions. Most things are Windows 64-bit only now, but some of the older versions may be both. We can see and install the application. We can download manually rather than a web-based install. We can also see updates and any add-ons or extensions through there. This is obviously also controllable directly through your Autodesk desktop app if you're an individual user. But generally speaking, really straightforward and works extremely well. And just as a final thing, if you are looking at potentially that premium subscription and what that offers you, just to flag some of the kind of usage reports that you can get from there. If I have a look at seat usage, select your team where your licenses are assigned to, or where you've bought those subscriptions. You can get a summary from last 3 months to the last 12 months. We can see what products have been used. We can see what users have used those products, so on and so forth. Okay. So generally speaking, you can start to get a good understanding or a good appreciation. This is just the tip of the iceberg. The premium plan goes into a little bit more detail about those. But again, please reach out. We'd rather have those conversations with you directly to understand exactly what you're trying to do and make sure that we point you in the right direction. But really, that's kind of all I wanted to talk about or show. So I'm going to open up for, what have we got? I'm a little bit overrun, but I'm going to open up for a couple of questions. I've seen that we've had a couple of questions popped in. So
just before you do, Rob, so I've put the link in the chat at the bottom for the approved country list for licensed global use rights. So please click that link, save it. If you've got people overseas, please make sure that they are in those countries. If you want some more clarification, and as we've said numerous times on this call, please just ask. But I appreciate Rob's just pulled up on screen in front of us.
Cool, thank you, Nathan. So we've just got one question actually from Anaya. Good morning, Anaya. So is Parallels VM on a Mac running Windows and Autodesk classified as a virtual environment? So yes, absolutely. Parallels VM virtual machine is a virtual environment. So it needs to use a single user. If that was audited and it was using a multi-user license, then yeah, that would be frowned upon, let's say. So any virtual environment needs to use a single user license, whether it's Parallels, whether it's Citrix, whether it's, I'm trying to think some others. There's an open source one, OpenVM, can't remember what it's called. Anything like that, any virtual environment, use a single user license, make sure that the user logging into that virtual environment is a named account. They have that named account, they have a license, and you won't have any issues, you won't go wrong. So hopefully that's answered your question there, Anaya, but any questions further to that, then just let us know. Doesn't look like anyone else has any questions, so I'm just going to leave this open for another minute or so, just see if anyone crops up. But certainly from me, there isn't anything else that I want to cover or talk through. Nathan, anything else that you want to add?
We've just had another question in, so on the chat bar at the bottom, Rob.
Yeah, so a question from Robert Aitken. Morning, Robert. If a user has not signed out of Autocad and has now left the company, how do we get the license back? So easiest thing to do will be log into manage.autodesk.com as your administrator and just unassign it through there. Although I said that the system won't sign out, if they haven't logged in and opened that software on a system for 30 days, it will prompt to sign in anyway. But just go and unassign the license, turn on his old machine, and make sure that from a workplace perspective that it's signed out. So when you open Windows in his Windows account, go down to the Autodesk desktop app down here, give it a little double click. Interesting, it says that there's an internet connection issue whilst I'm talking over the internet over Zoom, or at least I'm hoping I'm talking over the internet over Zoom. Come up to the top right here. If he's still signed in, just hit sign out. But easiest thing to do there, Robert, is log in, unassign the license through manage.autodesk.com to be absolutely sure that there's no license assigned to anything that he's remained logged in personally. That's step one, and then just sign out of his Windows machine like that. But we can follow that up with you afterwards if necessary. I hope that answers the question. Another question from Anaya. Does shutting down my machine automatically close my license usage? It won't sign you out, but if you shut down your machine, you won't be using that license. If you sign out, you won't be using that license. So correct, as long as you're shut down, there's no way that you can be seen as using that license on 2 machines at any one time. As long as it's the same user, of course. Don't share licenses, but yes. Okay, I can't see any more questions, so I'm going to close the session off now, I think. But again, you all saw our contact details earlier on. I'm just going to bring them back up on screen now. If you have any follow-up questions or anything like that, please get in touch, drop us an email, give us a call, reach out on LinkedIn or one of the socials. We'll be more than happy to talk to you. But yeah, I guess sometimes these conversations around subscriptions and how-tos and help are usually a bit more specific. So if you have anything that you want to reach out about, then please get in touch. But certainly that's everything from me. Nathan, do you want to wrap up?
Yeah, we've said it from the start, and I think we'll continue to say it, and Rob has mentioned it there and then. I think for a lot of people, until you have an issue or a problem, it can be a case of we'll support you when it's deemed appropriate. But I think ultimately, please take the guidance that we've given you in terms of what myself and Robin have mentioned today. If there are further questions, I appreciate we're wrapping up, but the team are here to help you and support you. And I think that ultimately, you're never going to have a specialist in your organisation, no matter how big or small, in terms of being able to apply this properly. There are going to be times where you lean upon us, and I think we'll just make sure that we're here to support you. So feel free to use us, okay? And we look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.